So we we have said so. On having said so, we should search for where these old valleys lead to. We an area an area here we used to, there's an area here which we used to call Salwa. This on this rounded shape. We we guessed that all rivers coming from this big gulf used to empty all to stream into this. So we thought is that we should dig a deep well in order to know how deep water in the well is and to know where exactly this river, having dried out into deep into the ground, how deep this waters were. This scientist used to say that I don't want to squander money on this yellow land because this yellow land to search for these on this yellow land used to this yellow land would not grow anything until we keep reclaiming them for 7 years or any information about them. Everyone. I still well this scientist I well I didn't live with this scientist. It took me it took me 13 years. It took me a whole 13 years in order to persuade the Egypt's Ministry of Farming of Agriculture of the importance of studying these and digging underground wells. For this area used to come from eastern of Owainat. The Arabic word Owainat, which is the name of the area, derives from the Arabic word Ain, which means water spring. Water spring is Ain, and the plural is Owainat. That's why the area is identified as Owainat, named after Owainat, which means an area with a lot of water springs. They abound with very clean water and desalinated water because they did not go through any even this waters are even cleaner than the Nile River waters, they haven't gone through any chemical substance or no chemical substance has ever permeated through them. And the ex-former Minister of Agriculture, Yusuf Wali, dispatched me with a group of other scientists in order to encourage people there to reclaim this land. If you log on to Google today, if you will find all the images. This is the street or road we see to the eastern of Uwainat region. This is the circular. This is the circular irrigation. This is circular irrigation. It's all sprinkle and flooding. This is splendid. It has a lot of underground water. Since the ancient times, used to have rivers flowing at this region. The probability, well, there's a probability that this amount of water would suffice Egyptians for the next 100 years if we apply newer technologies, newer techniques of making use of water. So we will not be drawing on this huge amount of water by flooding, but by sprinkling. So we have to think over how to make better use of how to make better use of this water, how to make better use of this water. But this can only be done until cannot be done until we realize everything, realize all the potentials of the region. You will find here some unique stones, some unique rocks. Well, this waters, underground waters here are as ancient as 10,000 years ago. This waters, underground and subterranean waters, are as old as 10,000 years ago. They can be drawn upon in order to irrigate waters, but not, of course, in the usual way used in the older valley of flooding fields, but by sprinkling or dripping irrigation. Newer ways of irrigating to conserve and the use of water have to be used in order to irrigate these areas. Actually, Egyptians have to invest the money on this land. Well, actually, we used to see Egyptians when they go to Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, or any other place in the world. They keep saving money until they buy a flat, and then buy a flat and buy a car, and then they come back without thinking of investing into these new areas. This is Israel. This is Israel. Where this images can be interpreted, can be construed as showing a massive, a vast area, a vast swath of land. One on being on a tour of Ad-Dakhla oasis. It's so called Ad-Dakhla because Ad-Dakhla in Arabic means something which is going inwardly rather than outwardly. On this trip to Ad-Dakhla region, Dakhla oasis, I come across one man who is the oldest of the people whom I cross. We solicited him to come with us on the trip. I asked him, "Are you going to come with us tomorrow?" Even Egyptian people, when they started to live in on the desert, they keep going to their own inhabitant, to their original place, to the place where they originated from, which is the town of Qift, overlooking the Nile rather than the desert. The Egyptian, when being asked by me, when are you coming with us tomorrow on the trip, he said no, because my brother has just died and we have to carry him backward, to carry him back to our original place of Qifta in Guinea Governorate to bury him. I asked him, why didn't you bury your younger brother here in the desert rather than go? He said, we originated from that remote place of Qifta on the Nile. We have to go there for everything. We have to get there even for burying the people rather than burying him here in the desert. So even it shows that even Egyptian peasants, when they come to the desert to reclaim it, they keep going to the original place. During the ancient times, only waters only existed along the Nile River. You can't live. People believe that they can't live the hell of anywhere until they lived on the banks of the Nile. There's something within. There's something that has been Well, the common Egyptian saying, which says that if you drink from the Nile water, from the river Nile water, you must come back to it, is true, is correct, because there has been something within all Egyptians that tell them that they should live only on the banks of the Nile. They should be as close as possible to the banks of the Nile. So, well, actually, this has stopped them from going more remotely into the desert to reclaim it and develop it. So development can be done all along so instead of this story, we started off the development passage or development corridor. This the way came the corridor. We can here develop this. For example, this region we can here raise livestock here. We can turn this zone or that into an industrial zone, into a farming zone, and we can raise or rear livestock here, for example. So different regions can be used for different purposes, like raising livestock, like turning it into an industrial zone or whatever. Don't do anything on the Nile. I can give you a better place, but away from the Nile. This can be used. For example, this for example here. This shows the Cairo Alexandria Desert Highway. This shows the highway between Cairo and Alexandria. It has become a little bit greener as people started to develop both sides of the highway from Cairo into Alexandria, which goes into the desert. Yes, this actually it has been turned into a plushy, flourishing greenery. And actually, the people, in order to cultivate these areas all along the desert highway between Cairo and Alexandria, used to draw on water, on subterranean, underground water, and then when we have finished when we have completed developing all this region, we have to link them together uh, into one corridor or into one passage to turn what we have identified as the development corridor or development passage. This is the natural slope of Egypt. This is the natural slope, topographically speaking, sand. There's a vast amount of sands in the Western Desert. The boundary line, the boundary line here. Well, this is the boundary line. We can make here a large passage, a large, so to speak, a large avenue, large road, corridor. We can link, this corridor is planned to be linking all these regions, which can be developed into different purposes, as we have already said: livestock, farming, industry, and so on. And this road can be linked into these areas through smaller streets or smaller roads, all linked or all streaming into this corridor. Suppose I did this original corridor, which is not that far. It can be an 8 lane. It could be an 8 lane corridor. 8 lane corridor that could be here. We could here, for example, build a bridge and build a railway line and a power supply line and a water supply line as well, so that we can live together. We have to plan what to do and what to build when we come to Fayoum. When I come to the northern plateau of Fayoum, Upper Egyptian Governorate, at this they will find a vast area I was I was planning here a solar supply station in order to supply solar powered electricity because we receive solar energy, solar rays that can be turned into electricity than any. We receive more of sun rays that can be converted into electricity than any other region in the world. We can generate solar powered electricity to fulfill the needs of Egypt, the entire needs of electricity, and sell the remaining electricity to Europe as well on at an area of 50 kilometers, as just Dr. Hanin Nokrashi, who has been here, one of the Egyptian scientists abroad, identified as Hanin Nokrashi. He realized that if we can convert more properly the sun rays into generating electricity, we can fulfill the needs of Egypt of power, of electricity, and export the rest to Europe as well.
Then we go down to the Governorate of Mania. There is a project not today called West of Mania, West of Mania. Here is the River Nile, it's the black line, and here is the city in Minya. And this area has some sands coming from Fayoum, and here is another sand road, and west of Minya is a land where the river ran or flew. It's a mud land until you reach the red color, which is limestone plateau. There used to be very good mud, which is now white because there is a salt layer. It's west of Mania project where they're talking about 1.5 million fadans or acres to cultivate. Let's go down again to a broader area, which is between the west of Komombo and Aswan. If Aswan is in the far south and Komombo is there, and in the north of Komombo up to Isna, there's a very vast area. I told you in the beginning that there is soil. There is this is a colleague called Hisham Nisi, who does research and safari in the Western Desert, and he is standing beside a composition. The thickness of which is is the ancient Nile mud, 5 meters of mud. Nile soil unused, unfortunately, because it was a delta. It's an old delta of rivers that came from the Western Desert before the Nile came to us. There were some Niles, some rivers in the Western Desert, in that high plateau. That high plateau, the end of those rivers, there was a plateau. All these lands are mud, Nile, good fertile soil. It's highly fertile. It's the Nile mud. It's a very vast area that we can take at least 500,000 acres to cultivate. We can take 2 kilograms of no, 2 meters, sorry, 2 meters of mud from this area and move it to another place in order to reclaim. I can take Nile water if there is no underground water, but there is actually, because as you can see, there is a sand layer in which there is water because of the leakage of the Nile. Water leaks from the Nile to these underground wells. And then Go down. This is the crocodile bones, which means that crocodiles lived in big numbers. People or the oil exploring experts got water as the first thing, and and uh, now they are doing cultivation of grapes, etc. And there are annoyances. The oil people, not only in Egypt but everywhere in the world, while digging, if they find sweet water, they never tell. Keep it a secret. No water here at all. Don't ever say this to anyone. Because if it's known, oh, so many people will come and the farmers will come and will cultivate the land. And they will spoil their oil exploration projects. And they, so don't tell anybody else. If you find uh, any fresh, good water to be used in agriculture, no. We geologists, when we went there, some people went there and grew grapes, and they are doing well. The other area is in Toshka, close to Toshka, Toshka project that we spent millions and millions of Egyptian pounds. And the president used to go there and stand with a suit, standing and looking into the desert as if this is going to be a paradise. But we don't know what's happening or what happened. We did pumps in order to get water which is 50 meters below the level of the land. There are so many arable areas in the area, but we can't cultivate them unless there are communities, human communities. We should send engineers, farmers, a community. But if you leave it this way, no. As you can see, now there is no more water. In the past, the level of the Nile was so high, but now, no, it's not that high as before. If you look at this passage I'm talking about, the line between the development passage I'm drawing and the low area beside the Nile, which is a flat area, flat land in white, we are living on 6.7 million, let's say 7 million acres. The white color area is 10.5 million acres. At least it doubles one time and a half the area we're living on. Part of it can be used as agriculture area, such as
Some of them can be partly turned into an industrial zone. So, Armenia University, for example, Armenia would like to build a stadium. They can take an area of this adjacent land. This 10.5 million fedans can be capitalized on for different uses. Well, underground. If if there's underground, this area can be used for cultivation. Actually, we may be able to double the area, double the area where we have been living all along the banks of the Nile, where we have been living over each other here at the Nile River. It's something really ridiculous. It's ridiculous to borrow money to import wheat and to turn this wheat into bread. The scriptures, uh, the scriptures found within the ancient pyramid would say that this great king for whom we have been building this pyramid tomb was a great was a great man because he was great. This king, his workers would say, his ordinary average people who would build the pyramid would say, as the scriptures say, this king was so great because he would bring each of his workers uh, a big loaf of bread as big as that. But now we have been ridiculously borrowing money from abroad in order to buy wheat from abroad to turn this wheat into bread for Egyptians living along the Nile. That's why there are no pyramids anymore. Now, this is this is this I have to end my talk about the by saying that this corridor development corridor could be at least half of which can be cultivated, and the actually the one fit for cultivation is partly endowed with subterranean waters.
مش بعيد قوي عن النيل. شكرا.